Hi, Lisa. Can you hear me?
I can, and we are already back here when it's time to start.
Okay. Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. We're all ready whenever it's time to get started.
Okay, great. Thank you. I could not hear you because I always have to have my sound turned off from the Monday night meeting. And then
Oh, got it.
once I join the meeting, I can't get back to that screen on my computer to turn the sound up. So I have to exit and come back in. But okay, these are my day by day issues. Okay. Great. Well, good morning, everyone. I will call Budget and Finance Committee of the City of Missoula City Council to order. It's July 27th, 2022. We are still having these meetings remotely, although we plan on going back into hybrid format for committee meetings in early September. If you want to join this meeting to provide public comment, you need to go to the city website and find the meetings and agenda page. Find this meeting and click on the link to join. You can also always provide public comment by calling our voicemail and leaving a message for us. The number is 406-552-6012, and you can email us. The email address is council@ci.missoula.mt.us. So Lisa, if you would do roll call, please, I would appreciate it.
I sure will. Stacy Anderson. Look like she's here yet. Mirta Becerra.
Present.
Daniel Carlino.
Present.
John Contos. John Contos.
Looks like he's joined the meeting, but hasn't turned his mic on yet.
Okay, perfect. We'll count him here.
I think he's here.
Okay, Jordan Hess.
Present.
Gwen Jones.
Present.
Kristen Jordan.
Present.
Mike Nugent.
Present.
Jennifer Savage. I don't know Jennifer today. Amber Sherrill.
Present.
Sandra Vasica.
Present.
Heidi West. All right, absent. So that means there are 9 present and 3 currently absent.
Great. And John Contos is with us 100%. Very good.
All right.
Great. Thank you. We have minutes from July 20th, 2022 to approve. Were there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, those will stand approved, and I'll take public comment on items not on the agenda, but we have no one in the attendee room right now to give public comment. Okay, so we're going to take a couple of small items first before we go back into our budget presentations. And I believe Marty Rabine is here. We've got two different items. They are action items. We need motions on them. Marty, how do you want to handle it? Do both of them, just present on both, and then we can follow up with questions? Uh-oh, is Marty with us this morning? I am not seeing Marty Rabine. Is anyone else here to present on street lighting improvement district assessments and park, road, and tourism business? Anyone here to present on that?
I think that was going to be Marty's. Maybe she's just running a couple of minutes late.
Okay. Okie dokie. Why don't we just go ahead with, we can kind of toggle back and forth, because normally Marty would always be right here. So I'm not sure if she's having technical difficulties. I think we will go ahead and get started with our executive budget presentations then. And if Marty joins and she's got some time constraints, we can insert her her two items in between. So will this work to go ahead with the police presentation? Do we have everybody here necessary for that? Because we are kind of jumping ahead to 9:15.
Yes, I think. Yep, there's Mike. Great.
Okay, great. Good morning. Hi, Mike.
Good morning.
Does this work for you? Have you had enough coffee yet? You're good to go?
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best here.
All righty. Thanks for your flexibility.
Can everybody see that?
Yeah, if you can make your screen bigger so that we don't see the toolbar at the top. If you know how to do that.
Okay.
And I can't help you with that, but maybe somebody else can.
I believe if you go to view and at the close to the very bottom, it says view full screen up on the upper left.
Thanks.
On here on Zoom. Is it on the Zoom app you mean, or on the presentation itself?
On the presentation, it says file, edit, and then view.
Yeah. Keep
And
going.
then go to view.
Go to view. There you go.
And then full screen mode, third from the bottom.
Sorry.
Perfect. Lovely. That's great. All right. Okay, we'll take it away.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Mike Collier. I'm the Detective Division Captain for the Police Department. Unfortunately, Chief White and Assistant Chief Hoffman are unavailable this morning, so I'll be representing our department for this presentation. Starting with the accomplishments for fiscal year 22. Really proud of a number of things that we've accomplished that year. So number one, talking about the upgrade in our communications systems. As you may remember, we bought all new portable radios last year, which really has made a marked improvement. So I talked to the patrol captain and asked for his feedback, as you know, the majority of those people using that are working for him. And it's his understanding from all of the line personnel that's been a huge improvement. And just kind of my own experiences, I often listen to the radio in my office, and I can just tell you it's a big improvement. It went from scratchy and broken and quiet to a really clear and easy transmissions to hear. So aside from the flexibility that gives, or the efficiency that gives our officers, obviously it's a huge safety upgrade. So that is working well. The second component there of working with Lexipol to revise our policy. So Lexipol is a really well-respected, arguably kind of the gold standard in American law enforcement police policy development. And we're working with them now, as the Montana Municipal Insurance Authority recognized them as such an expert that they're actually paying for this service and encouraging municipal police departments to work with Lexipol to upgrade and review their policies. So we're well into that initial revision. The beauty of that is they continue to work with us after the initial revision for updates, as policies are kind of live documents and always need to be reviewed and updated. The third point there with our reserve program, again, proven to be a great program. So we get a lot of efficiencies just in the amount of money spent. So we can provide all of the court security for municipal court, transport to the jail, security for the council and committees. And we do that all at a rate for a reserve officer, which is obviously much less than overtime rates for our full-time police officers. It's less burnout to our officers who are working their normal full-time jobs and then working overtime, to cover these duties that the reserve officers can cover. So that's really great from a dollars and cents standpoint. The kind of additional benefit to that is proving to be a nice recruiting portal and a way to develop people to come and be full-time police officers for us, after they've been a reserve officer for a little bit of time. So happy to have that program stood up. Implementing scenario-based training and de-escalation is our next topic. Again, very successful. We've had scenario-based training through a system called IES in the past. We bolstered that through our TASER program, which now offers a virtual reality, a VR type of training, scenario-based training. And it's really important. I mean, it's important to be able to apply a skill, but the most important thing we have is de-escalation and choosing when to use force. So this type of scenario-based training is really important to all of our officers, and we're happy to be able to add that virtual reality component to the pieces that we had in place already. The next topic is we've completed the locker room project, so those are all being assigned out. Again, it's important to our people to have a place to clean up, be able to change uniforms, not have to take infected type like an exposure or something like that on their uniform back to their home. So we're excited to have that stood up. And the last piece is transitioning the CIT program into our department from fire and continuing to support the mobile support team. So all of those are programs from fiscal year 22 that we're now have in place and are happy to have them all running well. Key goals for this fiscal year, all tied to the strategic plan from Chief White, which is goal number 1 is always to protect life and property. Goal number 2 is enhancing public trust. Goal number 3, enhance internal trust. And goal number 4 of strengthening and modernizing the department's response to emerging public safety trends. And so all of the asks that you'll be hearing from us this year are tied directly to the goals outlined in the strategic plan. A recap of the budget from last year. We are under budget, so $21 million budget total. About 93% of that comes out is our personnel costs. So about $19.5 million in personnel costs. We have a savings in that major category of $924,000, largely due to vacancy savings. So we've had people out on work comp, in which the work comp program covers part of that expense. Other just attrition, people who have resigned or retired. We have one person full-time military deployment, so on. So that creates a lot of savings there. We were under also on our operating expenses. Miscellaneous expense category is just a small category that we use for intern stipends and IT infrastructure expenses. So as you can see out the door, it's about a $937,000 turned back to the city budget. Breaking that down just a little bit, some examples of what is our operating supplies. It's the nuts and bolts of what it takes to run the department. Things like our initial issue for uniform and equipment. We oftentimes have to replace those uniforms or equipment due to damage. Our ballistic vest replacement program, which is a contractual obligation with the Police Officers Association. TASER supplies, batteries. We're required to have notaries on staff, for the court and so on. So all of those necessary type of nuts and bolts, so to speak, is the bulk of that budget. Also includes our vehicle repair and maintenance, our vehicle fuel. And then we move into our purchase services. These are things like our communication agreements for required things such as our NCIC terminals and so on, printing and publications, all of our telephone services. Professional services include things like our sex assault exam kits, psychological pre-hire examinations for new officers and so on. Repair and maintenance, so that's outside of the vehicles, partially outside of the vehicle stuff, which includes copiers, software platforms, and licenses. and our training budget, which is our department-wide includes all of our travel, all of our training classes and necessary supplies. So our new request for FY23, number one, increasing the department fleet. As you can see here, we've requested this last year, requesting it again this year. What we've identified is that we have a newer and more efficient way of deploying police officers in the patrol division. And what that does is overlaps more officers to be available at the times of the day and the days of the week that we've identified as the highest call volume. When you have more overlap like that, you have more times where there's more officers working when they're needed and less officers where statistically they're not needed at certain times of the day. So that heavy overlap creates a need for more cars. And so even if we had all of our cars stood up, it would be very tight in covering enough, having enough cars to cover those officer deployments. But what is kind of complicating that is that you've always got cars down for repair and maintenance. So it could just be normal, oil change. It could also be, a damaged car or a new set of tires or brakes or something like that. So at any given time, about 20% of our 23 cars that are assigned to just normal zone work can be out of commission. So that's, about 5 cars. There are other cars that are in specialty assignments, but they're not routinely available unless it's kind of an emergency to use those as, just normal zone assignments or normal, patrol duty type of assignments. So this request is for 5 marked patrol cars and 1 additional patrol motorcycle. And it would be used to make sure that we have enough cars to deploy the people that we work so hard to get into an efficient schedule, to recognize the days of the week and times of the day of a high call volume. Gwen, do you want me to answer a question from Mr. Carlino now, or should I continue?
No, let's go ahead and finish the presentation first. I know we've got short time periods today, so I want to make sure we get through everything before questions. So thanks.
Sure. Request number 2 is a request for a patrol commander position. So this position would work directly for the uniform patrol captain. The uniform patrol captain has 2/3 or better of all the sworn officers on the department working under that chain of command. So for as long as I've been here, that patrol captain job has been identified as a really big job. A lot of things come at that position, and the volume of that makes it difficult for that patrol captain to kind of, have more creative long-term thinking and long-term planning, as there are tasks that flow with such a big division at that assignment. So we kind of call it playing defense. You can't really go look for creative solutions and long-term planning when you're playing defense on all of the projects and meetings that are coming at them. So the patrol commander job would take a lot of that burden off of the patrol captain. Patrol captain has 3 lieutenants that work under his assignment, but they have other important duties. We need high-level supervision in patrol operations from those lieutenants, and so the captain's reluctant to pull them into these meetings and some of the other collaboration work that he needs to do. So that makes this commander position a value position to help the oversight and planning in that division. The wellness app. So again, part of our strategic plan is to make sure that we are committed to the health and wellness of our officers, our non-sworn people and their families. So we've engaged with a company called Cortico. Cortico is a mobile, seamless platform that offers a number of health and wellness benefits to its subscribers. Some of the stuff that Cortico offers is an overall wellness kit. There's about 60 different topics, ranging for everything from finance to marriage counseling to sleep and exercise and all those type of things. It also has a Get Help Now, they call it. So it's a one-touch connection to connect the subscribers to a number of different outlets to help them. It can be a one-touch connection to our peer support group within the department. It could connect you to the EAP program from the city of Missoula. It could also connect you to a suicide hotline, or they call it COP line. All of this seamless connection is completely confidential, and it can be done at any time of the day or night from any platform as long as you have connection. So basically what it is it populates on a cell phone or tablet or whatever. And just through that easy connection, an officer can get help or just get a little bit of a break or some advice at any given time. We ask a lot of our officers, and I thought a good way for me to kind of illustrate how this could be of value is I'm going to walk you quickly through one day in June of 2022. So I just picked this day, and this is a day shift patrol officer, works for our department, and this is what her day was like. First dispatch of the day that morning, she got a report of suspicious activity and that somebody heard a female yelling for help from a vehicle. So we dispatched our officers. When our officers were en route, the vehicle took off quickly, went a short distance, and then stopped. The woman got out, jumped on a bike, and took off, and we never found her. So it kind of makes you wonder, kind of makes you worry and hopeful that she's okay. The next call was a vandalism call. A couple roommates called it and reported that their window had been broken out. They thought it was the other roommate who got evicted. We were unable to find that roommate at that time and got assigned for follow-up later. Not a big deal, you know, in the big scheme of things, but nonetheless, it's not a great day for those people. So you take on some of their anger and frustration when you go to those calls. The third report was that this officer got sent to the hospital where an elderly female had been admitted and transferred to ICU with some serious injuries, and the reporting party suspected that maybe this woman's caregiver had assaulted her and caused the injuries. So that officer is responsible for taking that initial intake, establishing what evidence is available, and preparing that case to be transferred to the detective division for assignment. Needless to say, it's a very sad call to go to. After that, then the officer went to a report of a male walking through a neighborhood wearing all black clothing with a cape, with a flag like wrapped around as a cape, with an assault rifle pointed in the air. Went into a parking lot and was like staring down cars with this rifle. He then took off. The officers responded. They never found him. Probably went into some house or something in the area. Again, a high stress call coming off of a very sad call. After that, the officer got sent to a casino to check on a woman who was extremely high on drugs and unable to care for themselves. So she had to switch gears there and get the help for this person and get them taken for medical care. After that, the officer made a traffic stop. After that, the officer got called to a residence where the reporting party reported that they had just witnessed a self-inflicted gunshot wound by their loved one. The officer went, attempted life-saving CPR. Unfortunately, the person did not survive. The officer went from there, had to be checked out at the hospital because she had blood exposure. Her uniform and gear and pants and all that were all exposed to blood. She had to get swapped out from that and then went back to work. After that, the officer took back-to-back shoplifting calls. And the last call of her shift was a dispatch of some suspicious activity of a couple of people using drugs in a parking lot. So the reason I tell you that kind of snapshot of that day is this Cortico app would be something where after that suicide call, if the officer wanted to quickly connect to either our peer support or EAP or an anonymous therapist from anywhere in the United States, she could simply use her phone, one-touch contact, and be in touch with somebody who could maybe talk to her for a short time before she goes back to work. So thank you for listening to that example. Request number 4. This is the addition of a program specialist and then to continue 6 months of funding to our existing program manager and data analysis for the CIT program. So what's been identified is that through CIT, we're positioned well and doing a good job of taking people who are in crisis at the moment. There are a lot of people who need continued contact right outside of that moment. And currently those duties are falling, on the program manager. So the addition of this program specialist would help with some of that ongoing care, keeping in touch with people who need that. This would be an MSW level practitioner who could also help instruct on the 40-hour CIT class and the 8-hour mental health first aid class, which is a class that's given to community members and so on that request it. That class is really at its capacity. Can't do any more of that right now. And this additional program specialist would be able to fill those gaps. Number 4 is increasing the hours for an on-call or a call-in police support specialist. This is in lieu of hiring FTEs. It's cheaper to do it this way, and we use them kind of on an ad hoc basis to help with a number of things. So some of them are in-house projects. So the annual report that you've seen that Chief White has stood up is an example of that. Our policy revision and upgrade that I talked about through Lexipol is another example of that. Within the department, outside of those big publications and programs, they'll help cover the 24-hour desk for call-in as we have absences there, and all of the related important services that come at that desk, which include fingerprinting for not only us, but other departments for the city. They do criminal histories for our prosecutors, both at the city and the county, and walk-in report taking and public assistance to anybody showing up at the desk that needs help there. So it's a way to cover a lot of gaps through programs that we're rolling out, and to cover things that like the 24-hour desk and all the related duties that come from that desk, or I'm sorry, from that position. So the 6th and final is an increase to fuel. It's no shock that price is going up every day, and in consultation with the finance office, the recommended amount to increase that for this coming year would be $86,547. That's all I have prepared, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to help.
Great, thank you so much. And I appreciate you walking us through the Officers' Day. I think it's important to have those specifics, to have some comprehension of what each day can bring. Okay, so we just have a couple minutes here. Let's do some quick questions. Mr. Carlino.
Thanks. Yeah, criminology studies have proven that increasing the police budget doesn't necessarily lower crime in town, and this is already the biggest budget in Missoula's budget, while other budgets like the mobile support team or sidewalks or bike paths, things that keep us safe, are not seeing increases and are even seeing cuts for things like the mobile support team. So I'm just wondering, why can't the Missoula Police Department use their current budget to accommodate these requests and make cuts as a department where you can, just because you all have the biggest budget by a long shot?
Well, so you could see what I mentioned earlier, that north of 90% of the budget is personnel. So, and we use every cent that in our operating that we are allocated. There's no room to move on that. So if you want to move the needle on that, you would move it through cutting personnel. So we are at and below staffing on personnel as sometimes anyway. So cutting more to us is just not the solution.
Could I have a
Is
follow-up?
Vasika? No follow-ups, because we're already over time and I've got a lot of other hands raised. Ms. Vasika?
Thanks. I have 2 questions. Number 1, I've been asked before why the police leave their cars running in the parking lot of the Catlin building. And then number 2, with that wellness app, I think that's wonderful. My question is, with you say it's completely confidential. Is that confidential from the other officers, and is it also confidential from the higher ups? Because I don't want anything that they say in the app to influence their employment with the MPD.
Yeah, thanks. So starting with the cars. So even when we shut the cars off, there's so much electronics in those cars. They have an auto start, and it recognizes when the battery's starting to get drained, and it kicks it back on and starts it so that the car doesn't die. So for your average patrol car, that's why they're oftentimes running, is the auto start kicks it on. And then of course the police, the canine cars, they have that for climate control. They kick on to control so that the dog doesn't overheat or whatever. So yeah, it's just necessary to keep the car running. And if we shut all the electronics down so that the auto start doesn't kick on, when you get ready to go again, it takes a number of minutes for the electronics to kick back on, and we have to have that stuff up and running. In-car cameras, body-worn cameras, mobile data terminals, all those things need to be running now. And oftentimes in an emergency, there's not time for that stuff to be rebooted, because that time is precious and they need to get going. The second part of your question, it's confidential from everybody. It's confidential from their peers, from from their supervisors within the department, anybody within the city, and even to the people on the other side of the app, the Cortico app. It's an anonymous interaction.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks. I'm going to take a couple more questions and then we've got to go on to city attorney presentations just because we're gonna run out of time this morning on everything. But John Contos, you had a quick question.
Yes, not so much a question as just a compliment. I've done a couple of ride-alongs and I've been very, very impressed with not only the training that you guys have received, but the way you respond to things. It just makes me feel very good about the amount of money that goes into the police department. And I know you guys are responsible enough to cut corners where you can, but this is an important part of running a city, is being able to feel safe. And the encounters that I've had with the police officers, which have been quite a few, way over impressed with just their professionalism. So thank you very, very much. And anyone who hasn't done a ride along, it's a blast. Okay, maybe not a blast. It's educational. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take one more question from Ms. Cheryl and then we're going to have to go on to the city attorney presentation. If people have further questions for police, they can email Dale or Lee or Captain Collier because we're going to have to stay on schedule. So Ms. Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate this presentation and also really love the wellness app piece of that. I do have a few questions, but I'm gonna ask my priority one, I guess, since we're short on time. I'm curious with regard to the wellness app. I'm just curious about other kind of mental health services, what you guys are doing in that department. I think that's really important for your officers. I think it's really important for them being mentally sound for the safety of our community and for their own well-being and their families. So that piece is important to me as we go forward. Could you speak to what we're doing beyond the wellness app?
I think we're doing a lot, or we've recently kind of become aware of the importance of this. So number one is the peer support group that I mentioned earlier that could be connected through this app. What that is, that's your peers, that's your fellow detectives, fellow patrol officers or whatever. And they've been identified as people who are well respected and trusted within the department. And they can easily just be leaned on when people need some advice or somebody to talk to. Of course, the city EAP program is another version of that. And we bring in outside experts on this. Ironically, today is one of them. So there are two presenters from Great Falls Police Department today who are presenting to our department about a tragedy that they had in their department like 20 years ago. And so they have the officer who went through this critical incident, and they have a commander who they kind of co-present. And the officer gives his take on what happened with his incident. The commander gives his take on how the department responded, how the department could have responded better, and so on. And it's being given to our officers today. We're doing another one on Friday. There's an expert from the East Coast who used to be a police officer, now he's a PhD, and this is what he does. And so we brought him in to talk to our people about taking care of yourself, vicarious trauma, compassion, fatigue, all of that stuff. And so we try to hit it from a lot of different angles. Some angles stick better with certain people than others. So we just try to offer options and expose people to information and let them make the best choice for them. While you've got me on the Cortico app there, I forgot to mention that although it's, I talked about it a lot being aimed at our officers, our sworn personnel, but it's also open to our non-sworn personnel. We have really great people who do things that are not comfortable either, right? So they listen to and transcribe police interviews, and that takes a toll. They look at crime scene pictures, that takes a toll. They handle our evidence, that takes a toll. So it's nice that this app is open to our non-sworn people as well as our sworn. It's also open to retired officers, and it's also open to officers' families. So it really is a broad net of support that the Cortico app provides.
Madam Chair, could I just have a quick comment? I won't ask another question, I promise.
Super quick because we're already behind for the day, guys.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to say, I mean, as we say we have a hard day here or there, I mean, that description of the day is really powerful to understand what they're going through and what can happen on a daily basis for our officers. So I appreciate your description of what we're doing beyond just this app, even though I think that's an important piece.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I went long. Thanks for the time.
No, that's all good. Thank you, everyone. We had some questions from Ms. West, and it looks like Mr. Carlino we could not get to. So like I said, email those questions in. All right, we're going to go on to our next item, which is City Attorney's Office. I'm not sure who we have to, oh, we've got Jim Nugent here and Colleen Rose-Bloom to present. So for the rest of today, for counselors, I'm going to just ask you to keep your hands, please don't raise your hand until they finish their presentation. We've got short presentations, and frankly, once a hand goes up, people's attention is kind of diverted. So just wait until we're done with the presentation, and then we'll take as many questions as we can. So good morning, Jim and Colleen.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present our fiscal year 2023 budget request, the new request. Initially, we'll show you a few slides to kind of help you understand in perspective how we fit into the municipal corporate organization. And then Colleen will explain in more detail the request for new items. Initially, the first slide we have here basically is just restating Montana state law with respect to the duties of a city attorney. The city attorney position in municipal government is unique in Montana state law in that it requires that the city attorney serve two branches of government directly. We're required to serve the executive branch and the legislative branch and issue written opinions and provide certain functions that are identified in the state statute, such as helping with drafting ordinances and contracts. We have also the uniqueness in that Montana state law doesn't generally set forth the duties of a position for any government entity, let alone the city attorney or any city position. So we're unique in that respect, that state law has a lot to say about what we do. I think one of the main things for you to remember and keep in mind is that the city attorney is required by law to give written and oral advice to both the executive branch mayor and the legislative branch city council. And it's always important to us that the executive branch understand that they do not have the ability to control and approve what we're going to provide in the way of legal advice to the city council. And the city council likewise doesn't have the ability to review and control and approve the legal advice we give to the city executive branch. It was a common question sometimes at the council orientation as to who we would represent. Mert Charney, a former mayor of Alaska and city council member here in Missoula, directly asked, who are you going to represent if the mayor and the council have discord? And I basically just tell them that we see our role as just presenting the law, and so that each side knows what the law is, and then we hope that each side will work it out and not have to have any litigation. It's been very, very rare that there's been this litigation between the executive branch and the legislative branch. Also, it's important to remember with respect to the duties that while things are all going well now, I've observed many times over the years where there has been discord between the mayor, executive, and the city council legislative branch. And also typically when there's discord like that, there's usually discord within the city council itself. And I've observed a lot of times when there were 7-5 votes, 6-6 votes, So right now, it's a nice calm water, so to speak, but it can change over time in the future. So the MMIA is our Montana Municipal Interlocal Authority that was created for self-insurance purposes when the private sector insurance companies quit insuring local governments. The first year they quit insuring the police because of all the civil rights lawsuits and nationwide, not just isolated to Missoula. This is nationwide. And so that was one reason for being concerned. The next year, United States Fidelity and Guarantee withdrew coverage for all local government, and they quit insuring local governments. So that gives you some idea of the purpose of the MMIA. With respect to some of our duties, additional duties in addition to those in the state statute, we advise city staff on everything that seems to come up as long as it's related to municipal government. You have a list there seeing some of the items. It's not totally complete. We also have to help train the new police officers that are coming on so that hopefully we can get them going in the right direction and not lose cases because of missteps or even get sued in civil tort liability for any missteps. Now, with respect to the Housing Authority, Montana state law explicitly states that the Housing Authority can call upon the chief legal counsel for the city for their legal services. So we do provide services to the Missoula Housing Authority, attend their meeting, their monthly board meetings. We also handle a lot of the day-to-day, doesn't happen day-to-day, but the regular stuff with respect to what landlord-tenant relationships might be, with respect to people not paying their rent or being of such conduct that their conduct causes them to be asked to be removed. Very rarely does it get to court. There's a few cases each year that go to court over the Justice of Peace Court, but it's rare that there are many cases. But how the number of units being rented is increasing regularly, and we anticipate it's going to be increasing again in the near future. With respect to the Montana Municipal Insurance Authority, a couple of other observations are there's 4 programs were created when the private insurance companies pulled out of insuring local governments. We needed a liability program for liability insurance. And so the initial thrust by the Montana League of Cities and Towns, which by the way, was on the cutting edge of doing something like this, a self-insurance pool. What this is a self-insurance pool where the municipalities assess themselves and put the money into pools to help cover any losses that have to be paid, as well as, of course, the cost of the program. But at the same time, there was concern, especially out of Butte, that they weren't satisfied with the state workers' comp program. And so when the original MMIA was created, it was for 2 programs, the liability program and the workers' comp program. Now understand that the liability program, any claimant has to prove or show negligence on the part of the city. We are not just an entity that will pay, oh, you may have a claim, all right, here. You have to show negligence. And for example, potholes, for example, if we did not know in advance and act within a reasonable time period, there could be negligence. If we knew and we had not taken action, but if we haven't had an opportunity to take action, there's no liability because there's no negligence. And so we get quite a number of cases. Most of them are pretty minor stuff, but most of them are are denied by the MMIA. They have about 5 claims adjusters for the liability and property insurance. Now, the property insurance was a program that was added later. You understand that the incorporated Montana municipalities, there's about 125. There's only 7 that are above 20,000 or 10,000. Either way, Belgrade's flirting with going above 10,000. Endicott and Havre have been up and down in the past. And there's probably close to 10 in the 5,000 to 10,000 range of population. So there's over 100 municipalities that are incorporated that have fewer than 5,000 people. So they wanted property insurance. The MMIA put together a property insurance program and then subsequently a health insurance program because of the concern that the smaller communities had with dissatisfaction with the health insurance programs that existed that they were able to subscribe to. Okay.
So, Jim, I'm going to ask, how many more slides do we have? Because we only had 15 minutes allotted for city attorney, and
we only have a couple more,
Okay.
and then Colleen's.
okay, we pretty much used up our time at this point for city attorney, but you know what, just let's get through it, okay?
This is just a chart showing the various services, the prosecution aspect of our office operations clearly has the most volume, and it's not surprising. It's basically generated by police issuing citations and that. So we usually are processing the police tickets after they plead not guilty in municipal court. Now, Colleen can explain our budget requests so that you understand why we're making our requests.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll talk fast. So we have just a few budget requests this year, and basically they're built around and apply to the strategic goal of community safety and wellness. The first you'll see is our victim witness coordinator position. This was a grant funded position that began in fiscal year 21. So this is an established employee. We're just asking that the baseline be increased for the 80% that the grant Montana Board of Crime Control was paying for her position. This is essential, particularly with our 3 courtrooms right now. We have these 2 people in victim services, and they're running back to back, preparing for trials. They're liaison for victims, oftentimes hard to get a hold of a prosecutor. So this is really an essential function, and it's getting more difficult with the current increases we are seeing. And so we'll probably be exploring a grant to add a 3rd position next year that will divide 3 people across the 3 courtrooms. That ties into our Missoula County Community Justice Department. For those of you who are new, this is an annual request. This is simply kind of based in our budget. They do assist the city. We have criminal advocacy, and we have civil advocacy, and we have dating and sexual violence prevention services that come through this grant. They ask for the annual salary and fringe benefits, and that's the information. I do have Kelly McGuire from the agency on this call as well, in case anybody has any specific questions for that program. Legal assistant, it was not recommended for funding. I brought this up last year. I'm not arguing. I just want to bring it and keep it on the everybody's minds. It's going to be something this next year. We're going to be seeing quite a bit of change and transition in our office. And so we'll probably have a better idea and analysis next year on our staffing and how that should look. Our CIP, our case management, this is been difficult, very difficult. We currently are out of another contract. Basically, we're finding that they can't actually deliver what they're telling us they can deliver at the time of procurement. So what we did this year is we've taken a bit of a pause. We are getting a full refund again from the company Filevine. We signed on with the support company to manage our current database, Justware, which was sunsetted, so we can get a better idea, do a bit more exploring, as well as this company that is supporting Justware has multiple people who are experts at Justware and are also developing a new case management system. So Missoula County is also, they haven't gone to their the commissioners yet, but they're also on the same path with us, and we're trying to stay together because there are cost savings for both of our agencies when we look at interfaces with law enforcement, since we share that database and such. And generally, any questions?
Thank you so much. If you want to take the screen down, and we had a
Okay.
question from Kristen Jordan.
Thank you for that presentation. I just had a question about the money that the Missoula County Community Justice Department is getting. I see that it's all for victims, and I'm wondering if the city is contributing any funds for diversion programs or to address the pretrial population in our local jail, perhaps supportive services for the pretrial folks who are on pretrial who need rides or phones or, you know, help getting ID. Is all the money the city given basically victim focused to that department?
Kelly, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. For this particular contract, yes, but I know that there are other things in the works with the city for pretrial in particular. And I assume that's a separate budget request. I'm filling in for Chantel Gaynor, so I'm sorry, I don't have all of the information, but for the city attorney budget, yes, it's victim focused.
Great, thanks. All right, thank you. I don't see any other questions. Just to reiterate, although we're seeing all of the new budget requests today in all of these different presentations, doesn't necessarily mean that those are funded requests. So do keep that in mind. Just because something's up on the screen, it is not necessarily funded, but for right now, it all gets laid out. All right, we're going to keep going with our, thank you everyone from City Attorney's Office.
Thank you.
Kelly, appreciate it. Next we have animal control.
Hey,
Good
good
morning,
morning.
Deshane.
So actually, I apologize. I didn't separate them out, so I just have all the health department requests wrapped into one. Is that going to be okay, or do I need to do them separately?
Let me ask Lee, how did we have this organized? And do we have time? Did we have a separate slated scheduled time for all health department requests?
I believe they are all in today.
Okay, great. All
I
back
will
to you,
just-
Deshane. Thank you.
I will just run through them. And whoever is in charge of the Zoom, Holly Hargrove might be on, and she is the our animal control manager. So if we could promote her.
We not promote. We have tried to promote repeatedly during the meeting, and that's not working. So
Okay.
if Holly is there, I will send her an invite from Zoom right now to Shane, so she can join directly.
Great, thank you. And I'm gonna go ahead and share screen and get going on this. Let's see, so. Okay, and as soon as I share screen, I can't see you all anymore. But if at any point I need to stop and answer questions, please just let me know. The Missoula City County Health Department is an interlocal organization, so we are part of both the city and the county. And our mission is to build conditions that support the health of people, our environment, and our community. We, just a brief reminder, are separated into 3 divisions. So we have environmental health, health services, and health promotion. And then I'm going to talk today about what we're proposing to do is actually separate out administration as a separate division also. So I know that a lot of the departments have been putting, as part of their budgets, how it fits into their strategic vision, the plans that they have. We actually are just now in the process of doing our strategic planning for the health department. So we'll be meeting with the Board of Health, our other advisory boards and committees. We'll be doing that process this fall, and hopefully by early next year have our strategic plan in place. We are choosing to use appreciative inquiry as the process by which we develop our strategic plan. So I just put this slide up. If you're interested in appreciative inquiry, feel free to reach out to me for more information. But it's a strengths-based, asset-based approach to developing a vision and a plan for how to achieve that vision. So we will hope to have a strategic plan in place early next year. So the next couple of slides, I'm not going to spend too much time on. There are our overall budget for fiscal year 23. So that includes all revenue sources, not just the city. And we have actually 5 funds, but today I'm only going to talk about the health fund and animal control. And so for fiscal year 23, we do have a projected increase to revenues of about 7.5% for our health fund. And we do have about a 5% decrease in expenses right now. That's largely projected as part of carryover from vacancy savings. We have had, honestly, the largest amount of vacancies that the health department has probably seen that we know of. I have staff who've been working here for 20 or 30 years and have not seen this many positions open. So because of that, we have staff savings that's carrying over. So we're actually expecting a small decrease in expenditure for fiscal year 23, with the idea that as we come out of the pandemic and are hopefully able to get more folks back into these positions, our fiscal year 24 would probably then go up to reflect something closer to pre-pandemic levels. For animal control, we've got about the same amount projected revenue, 7.6%. With animal control, though, we do have an increase in expenses that's expected. This is separate from the big capital project that I'm going to talk to you all about today. This is just sort of our baseline operations for fiscal year 23. And that has to do a lot with, we had to raise the salaries for our animal control officers in order to even just keep those positions filled. We were at almost a critical level where we weren't going to have enough people to sustain operations at animal control. We negotiated with our union. We were able to adjust the salaries for our animal control officers. And so that's going to be reflected this year in expenses, which gets me to, we submitted 3 enhancement requests this year. And so that's really the meat of what I wanted to go over today. The first one is very standard. It is the what I would consider cost of living increases for our health control and health department and animal control staff. The only thing to note, though, is that this year the request is pretty significant compared to previous years. Our employees here at the health department are organized in a collective bargaining unit, and they're part of the Montana Federation of Public Employees. And they came to our largest, we actually have 3 bargaining units in the health department, but our largest bargaining unit that covers the majority of our non-supervisory, non-professional employees. Well, I wouldn't say no, because we do have professional employees in our union, sorry. But the bargaining unit that has the largest number of employees came to the bargaining table this year with a lot of data. And what they had done is gone and used publicly available data to look at what other bargaining units in the city and county are paid for the exact same positions. And what they found is that for several positions, the health department has the lowest paid employees performing the same duties. So, for example, an administrative assistant who was starting here at the health department would start at $2.50 less than the exact same position, an administrative assistant starting in another department. And so they brought a lot of data. And then of course, they also brought data regarding inflation, which we all know is a huge issue right now. And they, honestly they've been a bargaining unit that has not seen a lot of significant increases in the past, and it's reflected now in their pay. And so we're at a point where we're not going to be able to recruit or retain staff if we don't do something to address the inequity in the pay. So our request right now, the other problem there is that we are still in negotiations. I'm actually going to be meeting with them this afternoon. So we don't know for sure where we're going to land for our salary increase for our largest bargaining unit. I guessed I put in there 4.5% because normally in the past, I've been able to find records for about the past 10 years. It's always been about 2.5% every year. So I put in 4.5%. Right now, what we're at the table with is even above that. I don't know where we'll end, but I know that, where we're at today when I meet with them this afternoon is above that 4.5%. So we're just, we're doing everything we can to constrain costs, but also realize that we can't operate if we don't have people in the seats doing the jobs, and they're not going to do that if they can't even be paid proportionate to someone in the same position at another department in the city or county.
Yeah. Deshane, can I have you make your screen big so that we are not seeing the side there? I'm sorry,
No, that's okay. Maybe
Funny how
I'm
I
going to
can-
try this. Did that work?
that much better, thanks.
Okay.
Right.
So you guys were seeing
And-
my my speaker view. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know. Do I want to go through the other two now and then do questions at the end, or do we want to do questions on each request?
Why don't we do questions on each request? So are there questions regarding this item? Ms. Jordan?
Thank you. Deshane, I apologize. I had to tap out for a second, and I just wanted to see, was it the union that is kind of putting some constraints on your salaries? Is that what the problem was? I do apologize. I missed that piece of information.
No. That's this bargaining unit, their pay matrix is a little unique and distinct in that it's a bargained pay matrix rather than a classified pay matrix.
Okay.
So what has happened is that over the years, and we're talking, decades, this pay matrix has gotten really wonky so that there are certain positions that start at random places instead of starting at like grade 1, step 1. The grades are not consistent in the percentage that is between them. And then for whatever reason, and I can't speak to it because I haven't been in past negotiations, this bargaining unit just has not seen salary increases, significant salary increases, at least over the last 10 years that I was able to find records for. And so almost the majority of the salaries in this bargaining unit are significantly under not just market value, but a lot of them are even under what the same position would be paid at another city or county department.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Heidi?
So my question's about process, I guess, more so than, so maybe it's for Lee or, so if, I guess, depending on the timeline of this negotiation and say it exceeds the timeline of our budget process, what would that look like to make sure we honor the negotiated contract once it's finalized?
On the city side, I would have to let Lee answer. At the bargaining table, what I've been told by Chris and Dale is that we have to honor it, so they'll make it happen, but I don't know the specifics.
We would bring a budget amendment back to city council for any increase over what city council approves in August.
Okay, thank you.
Great, and that's good to know. If it's August, I would hope that we might actually come to an agreement today. I don't know, we might still need at least one more session. So there's the potential that we could have a final number by August, but if not, then we'll work with Dale and Lee.
Great. Okay, those were all the hands I saw. So why don't you keep going?
Okay.
Thank
Our
you.
enhancement request number 2 was, so the health department right now has these 3 divisions, and the health director and health officer, which was formerly Ellen and is now myself, is then over everything that is not contained within one of those 3 divisions. And so that includes personnel, contracts, budget, facilities. And so this position, when I stepped into it, was really set up, even though it's the health director that ideally should be leading the organization, it was really set up as a managing position. And so, Ellen has just a wealth of experience and knowledge and background when it comes to these policies, procedures, budget, personnel. And that's great. That's absolutely something that has to take place in order for us to be successful. But the department also needs a leader, and the health director would be stepping into that role of leading the development of the vision, the direction, the strategy, building internal, external relationships. That's really, when you look at a chief executive, a leader of an organization, they have a lot of roles and responsibilities, and I would expect to have a lot of roles and responsibilities around what you see in this leading circle. I can't perform those because I'm bogged down right now by all of the stuff in the managing side. And so very common structure is that you have like a director or chief executive, and then you have a business manager, operations, director, whatever, however that structure would look. And then you have both of those mechanisms in place working toward accomplishing the goals of the department. But you really can't, you can't have one without the other. Just managing is not going to get us there, and just leading without taking care of business is also not going to get us there. So what we currently have in place, the way it's designed right now, is as health director and health officer, I'm over all 3 of the division directors, but then I'm also over our 5 staff members who perform anything that would be sort of, business or operations. And so they're taking care of personnel, of facilities, of contracts, finance, budgets, all of that. And what's happening is I'm getting so bogged down on the managing and the business side that there's not really an opportunity for me to do that leadership and that strategic role. And then, so what we're looking at doing is creating a position that would sort of take over all of these interdivisional roles, cross-divisional roles. Most of our cross-divisional roles that are not under me right now are housed under Cindy. And I know that this chart is really hard to read, and I wouldn't expect you to read it. And that's honestly kind of the point, is we have so much crammed into health promotion right now. And so the way it works right now is Cindy is not only over, so every single one of these boxes is a project or program. Some of them might have just 1 FTE. Some of them, like infectious disease, could have 4 or 5 FTE. But then the box all the way on the left, what it says under there that you can't see is see next page. And then, so the box all the way to the left is Lisa Biskevich, who does our prevention. And then we have all of these prevention programs. So right now, Cindy in health promotion is over all of health promotion and prevention. But just because of the way things have evolved over the years, she's also over all of our cross-divisional stuff. So things like epidemiology, accreditation, public information, all of that has just fallen under her in the past. And what we are looking to do, what would change, is that this new position that has been approved by the county is Health Administration Director. And so we would actually be creating a separate division, and the Health Administration Director would oversee that division. And so they would then oversee all of the cross-divisional activities. So that includes the contracts, personnel, budgeting, but it also includes our accreditation, our epidemiology. We're actually going to be changing the name of that position because it's almost a misnomer, because our epidemiologist, he's really our health data person. And so he works with all three divisions on developing plans to how they're going to collect data, how they're going to use data, how they're going to report data. And so he's absolutely cross-divisional. And so all of those cross-divisional duties would then go under this health administration director. And then in this new one, then Cindy, you can see Cindy's scope narrows just a little bit and becomes a little more manageable for her. And then we still have our promotion programs. I know that this is absolutely a tricky request right now. I know that the city is not wanting to try to build new programs and hire new positions right now. What I would say though is that this is not a new city position. This is a county position. This is housed, the health department, we are housed under the county. And what we're asking is for the city to contribute to this position so that I can really fulfill that role of health director and not really be bogged down in the business manager role. And then, what I would say is that without this role in place, I'm also going to have to work with city council and the county commissioners to then really level expectations about any kind of strategic movement or growth within the department, because right now I don't have time to lead those because I'm literally focusing on day-to-day operations. So that is my second request. And I can't see if there are any questions.
No, we don't have any questions, so why
Okay.
don't you keep going?
All right, our last one, and then I'll get out of your hair, is animal control. And we are changing, and so this is going to be a CIP request, a capital improvement project request. I believe I'll pass that over to Lee, but what I did want to do just briefly is talk about why we are making this request in general. Our animal control facility is inadequate. It is not safe for staff. It is not safe for animals. What you see on the left side of your screen is where the majority of our staff work. It's an open area. You can see when you walk in the door, the public is right there. So we've got the folks at the front desk interacting with the public, answering the phones, and then we have animal control officers and investigators sitting at desks trying to do investigations, make phone calls, answer phone calls. We have cages, cat cages literally in the middle of this working area. And this is also because that is the only area. So this is where if they're gonna try to eat their lunch, they either have to eat their lunch here or out in their vehicle. And so what's happening now is actually most of the staff just aren't eating lunch. They're just not taking breaks, which we don't want. We do not want to encourage that. But you can't sit here and have somebody walk in and look at you while you're eating lunch and not get up and help them. And then what you see on the right side, that trailer, is what we've had to do because we literally don't have enough space even for our animal control officers. And so we have a trailer now, and they are working out of that trailer. I'm sorry, I thought I had pictures of inside the trailer, but I didn't put those in. So we have this issue with staff, but we also have an issue with not enough space even for our animals. And so what you see here on the right side is our cat room, and you can see, it's just lined with cages, and it's about, you can't tell, but that's only about 6 feet apart. But then we have such need that we have cat cages literally out in our hallways. So when you're walking, and these cats have to be out in these hallways as people are walking, and not only are they, having to deal with people walking through, but then they're also right next to our dog room. And it's a very quick 10-second video that I'm going to play just so you can hear what the cats have to be subjected to all day long.
Not hearing anything.
Oh no, you guys can't hear the dogs barking?
I can't hear it,
Okay.
but they're awfully cute. They're really cute.
The cats are, but what you can't hear is that there's literally dogs just barking their heads off in these cats. So what's happening now is we bring cats in, and because of the stress associated with this environment, cats are actually getting sick. And then what we have to do is keep those cats even longer, because we can, we're not going to be adopting them out while they're sick. So we have to have them for sometimes at least weeks. And what happens is then we have to either isolate, and if we don't have room to isolate, we have to put, sick cats either together, or sometimes a healthy cat in a cage very close to a sick cat. And so all of these cats are coming down with, there is actually cat colds, and it is not a safe environment for our animals. It's not even an adequate environment for our animals. Right now, we have fostering in place because we can't fit all the animals at our facility. And then, because I think I'm past my time, but the one thing I'm just wanted to end with, there was some concern about, well, Humane Society is here. Are we working together? Yes, we absolutely are. We've had great meetings, and we are now strategizing. However, even just among these two agencies, we do not have enough capacity to meet the need for Missoula County. And so even by growing our facility, we are not stepping on toes. We are not going to be competing for work. There's more than enough work for both of these agencies to do. And we're going to work on putting out better messaging, joint messaging around that.
Great. Thank you, Deshane. If you can take your screen down so we can see everybody again. And
I mean, I know how to do that right here. Okay.
thanks. Lots of great information in a very short time. I really, really appreciate that. And yes, I absolutely believe we have lots of, how should I phrase it, opportunity for more animal sheltering in general in Missoula. So that's an absolute truth right there. Tons of need and limited resources. All right, I'm going to go to some quick questions. Ms. West.
So I think I have two questions. One is if there are any, I guess our community's grown incredibly over the last couple of years. I was wondering if there's any maybe best practices around the size of our community and population growth, and how we could maybe correlate the size of the facility need, if that makes sense. And that's my first question. And then my second question is that obviously there are more animals out there than cats and dogs. And if you could talk a little bit about maybe capacity and ability to maybe hold other types of animals. I could see there being, with hay prices, maybe, horses that get abandoned, or those larger livestock animals that maybe would fall under your jurisdiction at some point.
So Shannon's on vacation this week, and I don't see Holly having jumped on, but I can say from my experience, animal control, Missoula Animal Control, has had to run the gamut on the types of animals that they do hold on to. And so they've, just in the year that I've been here, we've had tropical fish, we've had birds, we've had all kinds of critters. So we had a hedgehog, and then goats, and what we're seeing at, not within the city, more within the county, but outside the city limits. Also, we have, people who unfortunately abandon chickens, abandon goats, and then horses, honestly, have been an issue for a long time. So horses, we already have a foster agreement in place with several farms, and they actually house the horses for us. And right now, that wouldn't be part of this redesign. We would stick with that only because for now, that has worked really well and has met our need.
Great, thank you. Ms. Vasika?
Thanks. Quickly, I just wanted to say, since the sound wasn't working, I've been there a few times, and those poor kitties, it is so loud with that barking. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
Yes.
Great, yeah. I was out there about a month ago, and it's super loud, and that's causes a huge amount of stress.
Exactly.
For the animals and people too.
Yeah, it's actually really hard to do business. We have people who call on the phone and we're like, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. It's
Yeah.
just not a good, it's a facility that needs to be expanded.
There was a bloodhound who was exceptionally loud, but beautiful. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you to Shane so much. I really appreciate this. We have a half an hour left. We've got 2 more presentations. We also have 2 action items. I'm going to pivot really quickly to those 2 action items. Marty, if you think you can give us some quick presentations and we can get these motions going, because I know those are time sensitive, and then we will come back to our presentations, and any presentations we do not complete, we're going to kick to next week to have a wrap up. I know there were more questions on police. I think we'll tag police on to next week also. Doing the best I can to manage this time, but I'm feeling like I'm not doing a very good job. So we will have a wrap up next week. Keep that in mind. All right, folks, including police and anything else we don't get to today or that we have additional questions for. Okay, Marty, go. Back to you.
All right. So quickly, I am bringing to you today a request to set a public hearing on street lighting district assessments for fiscal year 23. On your screen, you are seeing what the lighting bills have been this past year. Here on the FY22 totals column, approximately $300,000 in lighting expenses this year. We are expecting Northwestern Energy to raise rates. There's an admin fee that we collect from each district that's apportioned for my time and for finance time in levying and collecting and depositing and managing these assessments and ensuring our light bills are paid in a timely way. Lighting is of general benefit to the city, and so a long time ago, City Council dedicated 10% of the road district, dedicated road district funds in the amount of 10% of the overall cost of the lighting district to offset the assessments for these particular districts. They are located throughout the city. And then finally, last year, when we brought these assessments to City Council, we had a windfall of around $50,000 associated with the conversion of LED lighting to LED lighting from standard lighting. And last year, the Public Works and Mobility Division asked for council to continue assessing at prior levels. And so that generated a balance in the fund. And so we are proposing to apply 50% of that windfall from 21 this year and to do the remaining 50% next year. Overall, our assessments last year were $368,000 and change, and this year we're proposing to have them be $269,000 and change. That's overall a decrease of 27%. You might have a question about why we're not doing the 100% savings. And here is what I learned a long time ago about levying taxes. This is a one-time reduction. And so if you drop the assessments by $50,000 this year, everybody's going to see a big tax savings. And then next year, you're going to go way up. So by applying the savings over the course of 2 years, that smooths that dip. So that's the reason for my recommendation. And the law requires that you hold a public hearing prior to levying these final assessments. So your motions today are the motion today is to set a public hearing on these items.
Thank you. Mike? You have a question?
Happy to make the recommended motion, and I do have a couple of questions, but they can wait for the public hearing, actually. So,
okay, Heidi.
So my question, I guess, has to do with the future Northwestern Energy rate hike. So we are basically expecting to see any financial savings associated with the LED conversion. They would probably disappear in the near future, correct?
The LED lighting savings were around $750 $50,000 in 21, and the difference between the assessments in 22 and actuals, the assessments in 22 were 368,000. And the actual lighting bills that we received were almost 300,000. So that's $70,000. So a 5% increase is $14,000. So no, I wouldn't characterize the 5% lighting district increase as usurping all the savings from the conversion to lighting at this time. I mean, over the course of a number of years, that will be the case. We're projecting this increase, but we don't know if that will be the actual increase. So there's also that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for answering that question. And I'm glad that at least we'll see some savings for the foreseeable future, even with some rate increases. So thank you for expanding on that.
Okay, and just a clarification, Marty, you just only presented on 3.1 Street Lighting District, correct?
I did.
Okay, you referenced motions, and I was like, well, we do have 2 motions, but we haven't gotten to the second one yet. So no, all good.
My mouth leaped before my.
I tell you what, why don't you do the second presentation? We'll take questions, and then we'll go straight into motions and streamline it that way.
Okay. So as you're considering the budget, you will be fixing the final dollar amounts proposed for Road District number 1 and Park District number 1. But we need to start the process of advertising those public hearings because of the statutory noticing requirements. And we won't get, as you know, those district assessments are based on taxable value, and we won't receive our valuations until August. The first part of August, and we usually don't get our parcel level valuations until the second week of August. But there's no way to meet statutory requirements with the actual numbers at this time. So we're looking at the projected assessments in the mayor's executive budget. And so our ask today is for you to schedule the hearing. I think it's the last, let's skip over my calendar here. It's the last Monday in August. So that'll be August 29th on the final assessments and method of assessment, which we are proposing to be exactly the same as has been since these districts have been established for the 29th of August. Likewise, I have an ask today to schedule the public hearings on the Business Improvement District and the Tourism Business Improvement District. The Business Improvement District assessments are based also on taxable value. And the Business Improvement District has submitted a work plan and budget, which you will hear more about in these sessions. The Tourism Business Improvement District is a fixed rate of assessment of $2 per room night in the hotels that are included in the district in the city limits. So I'm also asking for you to set the public hearing on those assessments for this coming August 29th. Thank you.
Thank you. And are you anticipating that we will vote on the night of August 29th, or will we keep that open to the first week or so in September?
You have to vote on them that night, I'm afraid, because there's a deadline that we have to submit all of the valuations at a parcel level to the county in order to actually make the tax bills. And that deadline will pass if you don't vote the night of the hearing. So
Great.
I apologize, but the state law kind of puts us in a box here.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that on the record that we will be completing the budget by the end of August so that we start September and can work on other things. All righty. I need 2 motions. Ms. Vasika.
Can I make both the recommended motions, please?
Thank you. Those are in order. Are there any other questions from council on these items? Mr. Nugent?
I had already made the first motion, just
FYI.
FYI.
You know what? I'm sorry. I've been juggling different things. So we've got first motion made by Mr. Nugent, second made by Ms. Vasika. I'll call for public comment on these items. Seeing no public comment, we will have 2 separate roll call votes on these items, please, Lisa. And then we'll go straight into the Tourism Business Improvement District. I believe we have our people here for that.
All right. So the first motion that I'm calling for is the 3.1 Street Lighting Improvement District assessments. Stacy Anderson,
Yes.
Mirta Becerra,
Yes.
Daniel Carlino,
Yes.
John Contos,
Yes.
Jordan Hess,
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Jordan,
Yes.
Mike Nugent,
Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
Yes.
Sandra Vasica,
Yes.
and Heidi West.
Yes.
All right, so that is unanimous for everyone in attendance with 11 yeses. And now we will go on, as soon as my computer catches up here, to 3.2, which is the resolution levying assessments for Park District 1, Road District 1, and Tourism Improvement District and Downtown Business District, moved by Sandra Vasica and Mirta Becerra,
Yes.
Daniel Carlino,
Yes.
John Contos,
Yes.
Jordan Hess,
Yes.
Gwen Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Jordan,
Yes.
Mike Nugent,
Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
Yes.
Sandra Vasica,
Yes.
Heidi West,
Yes.
and Stacy Anderson.
Yes.
So that is unanimous for all in attendance with 11 yeses.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Both of those can go on the consent agenda, and we will hear those and vote on them on August 29th. Thank you, Marty. Okay, now we're going to go to the TBID, and we have Barb Nealon here to present. I'm not sure if anyone else is with you, but good morning.
Oh, just me.
Okay.
Thanks, you guys, and I really appreciate, and I'm going to try and move through pretty fast the slides that I do have, because I know that you're short on time, but there's a lot of information to kind of go through as to what we've been doing and kind of where we're headed, because I'm very excited about where we're headed in the next year. So let me start my screen share here. Are you seeing that?
So far, it's just dark.
Okay. Shoot. Let me try again, sorry.
There you go. And then if you can just make it so
Yeah,
that
I'm
we
gonna-
only see your slides, because we're seeing your whole computer screen. Lovely. That's great.
You got it? All right.
Great picture. Beautiful.
We've got some beautiful pictures. At least you guys will have visuals with this one. So I just want to quickly kind of go over, tourism is a huge part of our economy in Missoula. It accounts for about $294 million annually of direct expenditures, and actually about $360 million in total economic impact from visitor spending. And the money that's collected just in Missoula alone accounts for $19.7 million in state and local taxes, which when you look at across the state tourism taxes, they relieve each household in Montana of about $626 a year in taxes that they would have to be paying. This just kind of is a quick idea of how the wheel works for economic development with tourism. We're the first touch. You know, it's the first time that people find out about a community. They come, they enjoy it, and they become repeat visitors because of that. They spend their money in the community, and that helps to create a vibrant economy and jobs, and people come back. So that's really what we're there to do, is to inspire that growth. Just quickly, when you look at the reach that we have 1.2 million people who come into our website on a yearly basis, which is massive. We're one of the largest websites in the state. We also have 231,762 people that either call in or use our live chat on our website to talk to us. We have 78,000 people who follow us on our different social media platforms. And we have about 130,000 projected social reach on our social media. These are just examples quickly of some of the advertising, print advertising that we do. Double Spread in Seattle Magazine, Good Housekeeping outside. You can see it's kind of a range of different markets that we're trying to reach, and family outdoor recreation, those kinds of things. This is also kind of a range of some of the digital banners that we've done in the last year. You'll notice kind of the theme running throughout these is kind of unplugging, recharging, wide open spaces, and your ability to be with your family or with your loved ones. We also, if you'll notice, have the Recreate Responsibly and Traveling Safely messaging on everything that we do right now and have had for the last 2 years. This is just an example of our Instagram, what it looks like. If you, I don't know if you can tell on your screens, but we have pretty massive response to these really big pictures, and changing seasons is what we really try to hit. We're trying to move people from the busiest times, which is summer, into tourism throughout the year. So we're trying to move them into the fall, into the winter, and into our spring months by inspiring them with our photo and our social media. This again is Facebook, same principles here, just different. We also have started into something brand new, and these are reels. And I don't know, and I'm not sure that the sound is going to be really important to you guys. It's just music, but it'll give you an idea of these 2 reels of what we're doing.
It's not really coming through the sound.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was afraid of.
Technology is not at that level yet. Yeah.
This one's just the river. That's all you're hearing. It's the visuals in this one. So the reason that I played those is because this is really becoming a way to connect with people. We had on the first one on the summer solstice, we had over 5,000 likes on that. We had 51 different comments and 120,000 views of that video. On the Missoula Moments, we had 2,189 likes. We had 15 different comments, and we had 34,200 views just of those, of that video itself. One of the other big programs that we do is right now we're the only organization that is supporting Missoula's Air Guarantee Fund, Air Service Guarantee Fund. In the past, we've contributed over $200,000 to this funding in order to be able to bring in and expand new air service into Missoula. We do have on a yearly basis $50,000 a year that goes into this fund, and we're currently sitting with a balance of about $100,000. And our idea with doing that is that with the expansion of the airport now, the airport's going to have capacity to be able to bring in more flights and also to start talking again to new airlines to bring them in. So we're wanting to have some money to be able to back them up and help them with. The airport, you know, in 2019 was the largest year. It was a record-setting year. We saw over 907,000 passengers through the airport that year. With COVID and everything that's happened, obviously some of that dropped off. This year, we're going to be back up to over 850,000 people through that airport. So busy and beautiful. If you haven't been out there, you need to. Just really quickly, our accommodations tax in Montana is 8%. Only 4% of that money actually comes into promotions to be used by the regions of CBVs and promotions. 3% of that 8% actually goes directly into the general fund, and it helps pay for essential services at the state level. The extra 1% goes into a special revenue fund that was built, that is helping to build the Montana Heritage Center in Helena. And it also is providing historic preservation grants for museums across the state. We also have a 4% car rental tax. 3% of that actually goes directly into the general fund for essential services again. And the other 1% of that goes into special revenue fund to create senior citizens and persons with disabilities transportation services. None of the car rental money comes back to the industry at all.
And Barb, just to clarify on that slide, when we're talking general fund, we're talking the state general fund.
We are talking the state. We are talking the state general fund, and that's really where the hiccup is, guys. Is, you know, I know that the argument is that we're not getting money from visitors. We are. It's just going into the state general fund and not coming back out into the communities the way it should. My thoughts.
Right.
You could get me started.
Yeah.
Destination Missoula actually manages both the bed tax funding and also the tourism and business improvement districts. And as was stated, the TBID is actually a 2% fee that's added on to an occupied room night within the city limits. And these funds are used for promotion, they're used for research, and to directly benefit our community through grants and sponsorships and the flight guarantees, supporting high school sports, lots of different things. When we started in
I'm going to interrupt you for a second, Barb, because I did want to emphasize that this is the money that actually does go back into the community. And
yes,
I mean, I remember 10 years ago running the youth lacrosse league here. We had to put on a statewide tournament that costs thousands of dollars. We don't have hardly any money, and we get donations from the TBID to help us hire the referees and rent the fields. And in return, we got a bunch of people coming into town, staying in the hotels, paying in. So that's the cycle there for a specific example.
Yeah, and that's the difference between bed tax and TBID funds. The TBID funds stay local. They don't go into the state. They stay local. And the only thing that we can't use TBID funds for is infrastructure. So it really allowed us to be able to broaden what we could do for the community and how we could be a good partner and interact with our community and support our community.
Yeah.
So the grant fund that Gwen was talking about, since we established it in 2010, and we have awarded over $440,000, which has created about $28 million in economic impact for the community. This year alone, events dropped off really badly. And so we're trying to bring them back. And so we had 5 events this year that we actually were able to award about $36,000. But those 5 events created almost $1 million economic impact for the community. So we're getting things ramped back up again and trying to help. We also have what we call a sponsorship. It's a community sponsorship fund that doesn't meet the criteria for the grants because these might be events that really aren't bringing in a lot of outside people, but they're very important to the community and to who we are. And so we like to be able to have a fund to be able to support those as well. These are just some of the strategic partners that we have worked with in the last year to try and make a lot of the things happen that do. So kind of going back over the last year, as you know, our industry was turned on its head. And so when COVID happened, we really looked at turning inwards towards our community and what do we do and how do we help? What we ended up with was really communications and being able to get grants from the state in order to do a massive safety campaign that you guys probably saw throughout the community. It gave resources to businesses. It gave information to both our residents and our visitors on what was open, how they could help, what they could do to stay safe and to continue to help businesses thrive. We had some great partners in this safety campaign with the Health Department, United Way, MEP, and a lot of others, but we became kind of the gateway for information on that. We were very lucky in being one of the areas that actually recovered fairly fast. Montana, all of Montana did, because people perceived us as being safe, as being wide open, as not having much population. And so we were lucky that we were able to start seeing a return of people before everybody else did. But it also created some issues that we haven't had before. And one of those issues was that we had a ton of first-time recreators, and not just visitors, but residents who, not meaning to, just didn't know how to recreate and what was the proper way to do it. And so we started a pretty massive Recreate Responsibly campaign that we still are continuing to this day to really help people understand how to recreate responsibly and what's expected of them when they come into the community. We also really wanted to help out the community as far as business support through the airport. We have a Heroes of Hospitality program that I'm so proud of, that really is an awards program for a person who really has stood out in the hospitality industry over the year for the things that they've done, and recognition to them specifically. We knew that the restaurant industry had really been hit. And so we created a full Missoula dining guide that was free listings for all of our restaurants in Missoula. And we also worked really hard with a ton of different partners on our downtown river map and ambassador program to do all of the design and all the website work on that. And so this really kind of brings us to our whole industry changed. It's completely different. And we recognized that. We were on our way to recognizing that before COVID hit. And it just pushed things along. Really, we've got such different issues. It was great having people back, but, our businesses didn't have the staff. They didn't have the capacity to be able to handle the experiences that these people needed. They were struggling. Our housing market, of course, skyrocketed. Our rental market shrank. Education, healthcare, we're all struggling. So the lack of affordable housing and workforce have become two of the biggest issues, as we know that we have across our community and really across the state. And it became really apparent that we needed to change as an industry the way that we're looking at what is our mission? What are our goals? What are we supposed to be doing? And really realizing that, our new measure of success needs to really find a balance between our community values and quality of life and healthy tourism and economic growth, right? And both need to be in place, because if one is out of order, the other one is going to be out of order. And so we're really looking at the need for sustainable visitor growth to be able to promote equitable economic development, to elevate the quality of life and place that we have, not just marketing. And so our boards came together and we brought in a national firm. We did a 3-year strategic plan that really outlined four major goals for us and 18 initiatives over the next 3 years. But the biggest one for this year is to start into a destination stewardship plan. And the idea behind this is to create a up to a 10-year plan that really gives us that structured framework that's value-based, it's sustainable development, and really helps preserve the quality of life. It means engaging our whole community. It's going to be, the size of like the downtown master planning was. But we really feel like we need to have full input and engagement in this process from everybody across the community. So that's the big thing that is sitting on our plate. The RFP is sitting with our attorney right now. And believe it or not, because I know you guys have been hearing this for a long time, I do believe that it is actually going to be released this month. Just really quickly, this is kind of really where the spend is for tourism dollars. And, if you look at it, gas is number 1, restaurants and bars are number 2, hotels are number 3. Number 4 is retail, 5 is cabins. This is switched up a little bit. 6 is now groceries, and 7 is now outfitters and guides. So you can really see how the recreation has kind of changed our wheel somewhat. And this just quickly gives you an idea of how our money is, and this is just marketing funds. This gives you an idea of how our marketing funds are allocated across our different budgets and how they actually come together as a total at the end here that give you an idea of how they're spent in not only on marketing, but also on our community. And with that,
great. If you can take that screen down, we're over time and we're going to have to end this. I would call for public comment in general on this entire meeting today, but we have no one in the attendees room. We're going to continue BID to August 3rd. All right. And we're going to take we have an 11 o'clock meeting that's starting that is super important that needs to start on time. So I'm going to have Kristen, let me see what the order is. I'm sorry, Kristen, Daniel, and Sandra, if you can ask one quick question, and thank you for your patience. All right, Kristen.
Yeah, look, mine, if need be, I can reach out to you, Barb, but I'm just curious about the difference between a local option sales tax that feels like we can't do based on what's happening at the state, that we could focus on our tourists versus the bed tax and the other stuff. Like, what's the difference there? And again, if this is a long answer, I can email you and find out later.
The local option tax allows you to spread things out a little bit more because you can decide on what that's going to be put on. Right now, everything is pretty heavy on the car rental agencies and hotels, right? That's where the money is coming in. Local option tax allows you to spread that out over some different avenues and be a little bit more broad in how you're reaching the visitors. As you could see from the wheel, where they spend their money is in those different higher categories that could also help collect it.
Yeah, and it's a big conversation, and I'm always happy to talk about that with people. We need the state legislature to change the law so that we can tap into all of that revenue.
Well, and hopefully we can have that discussion with the stewardship planning process, because I think that can be a piece of it. Is what can we look at as a community for alternative sources of funding?
Absolutely. Daniel.
Thanks. I saw the part on the chart where you talked about the hotel bed tax and bread and breakfast bed tax. And I was curious if you know how many Missoula bed and breakfasts or short-term rentals are paying the state tax?
All of them are.
Or I guess I was curious if you had a quantity number for like last year, for example, or something like that.
For the total of bed tax that's paid in Missoula, is that what you're asking? Or I'm not sure what you're asking.
Oh, sorry. I guess I'm asking how many bed and breakfasts or short-term rentals, quantity-wise, were paying into the state bed tax last year. or for any year
Well,
that you have the data?
Well, the bed and breakfasts are considered, they're all paying into the accommodations tax. Whether you're short-term rental, whether you're B&B, whether you're a campground, it doesn't matter. You have to pay into the accommodations tax at 8%. So anytime that you rent a room out, no matter where you are, even if it's a dorm room, those are taxed at 8%, and that money goes into the state. Is that what you're asking me, Daniel? Maybe what we could do is have a conversation. I'd be happy to have a longer conversation with you about it to kind of give you total numbers and everything, if that would help.
Yeah, that'd be great. I guess I was just trying to see what number of short-term rentals are paying that bed tax, because it might help with our study that we got too from Granicus.
Yeah, we just moved over from AirDNA into Key Data, and just really starting to get a handle on it. It's giving us much broader information. I know that there's about, 1,065 short-term rentals in the county itself. I don't know within the city limits exactly how many that is. As far as the bed and breakfast and the hotels, we have just a little over 3,000 rooms within the city limits itself. But I would be happy to reach out to you and we could have a discussion about it.
Okay, Sandra, I see your hand is down and
I'll hold it till next.
We're just so over time. Okay.
Sorry,
thank
guys.
you. No, that's all good. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Barb. And I really appreciated, especially the very end of your presentation where you're talking about how you are pivoting and refocusing and what the way is going forward. So that's a huge piece. I didn't get a chance to look at all those numbers, but they are in the presentation. Okay, we have an 11 o'clock starting at 11 o'clock, everyone. So we will stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Barb. All righty. Bye-bye.